Hi everyone and welcome to another live Q&A. My name is Cedric Marin. I'm a Canadian immigration lawyer at Holt Immigration Law. And today I'm going to be taking your questions live on how to immigrate to Canada. So if you have a question, let me know from where you're joining me from, and then you can go ahead and ask your question. I don't necessarily go by order. I try to take the questions that apply to the most people. Also, keep in mind, this is just general information. It's not legal advice. In your 200-word question, I don't have enough information to know specifically all the details of your case and give proper advice. So this is just general information. We are Holt Immigration Law. You can head on over to our website. At the very top, you can go ahead and speak with a lawyer, and you can scroll down and you can find me here with our exclusive areas of focus: express entry, study permits, and rejected work permits as well. And then my focus is really rejected and delayed applications and reconsideration requests. So welcome for those of you who are just joining us to this live Q&A. We're going to talk about some of the things that we've been doing at Holt Immigration. Now, I do a podcast twice a week. So this is really what happened the last 2 days or so, right? So one of the things that I do, as I mentioned, is federal court applications. And I just filed another application at the federal court for a client of ours that has been refused a visitor visa 4 or 5 times. They've tried reconsiderations, and really the only option is to go forward with a judicial review. So sometimes when you have your rejected application, IRCC just continues to refuse it. You really need to go to the federal court. So we have a lot of information on our website. If you head over to our website, go to legal help and take a look at judicial reviews. We have a lot of information here about the detailed steps about what is a judicial review, what are the deadlines, what are the results, what's the likelihood of success, and so on. And this is a very detailed blog. It's maybe a little bit too long, but all the information is there if you want to learn more about how it works and and the chances of success. So take a look at this blog. Take a look to see if it's an option that's right for you. The second thing that we've done this week, or I've done this week, is help a client with a rejected study permit. So sometimes, it's a valid option is to reapply. You can improve your application, provide more supporting documents, explain the reasons for the refusals, do a reconsideration request, and reapply. Judicial review tends to be a little bit costly. It can also, because it takes a lot of time, and it can take in some cases 2, 3, 5, 6 months before you have a decision. And as we talked about, even if you're successful, it just means that IRCC is going to look at your application once again. So, all right, guys, time to let me know where you're joining me from. Time for your questions. Now, keep in mind that on November 16th, it's the tier and the knock changes are going to take place. So just before we start taking more of your comments and questions, let's just head on over to the IRCC knock. And this is something that you're going to have to do. So if you have an application if you're making an application, if you have a PNP and whatnot, you can head over to the website here. And, it's very clear that they're going to be switching to the 2021 knock, which is now going to be called tier categories. So they're getting rid of knock O, A, B, C, and they're replacing it with 6 categories. And we can take a look at here the 6 different categories. Here it talks about a general overview of what the different tier categories are. Interestingly, right, they've now have a specific category that tries to focus computer and technology and medicine, which is very neat. At the very bottom here, you can see how it's going to affect the different programs. And if you're going to be making an application after November 16th, or in some cases, depending on PNPs and whatnot, you may actually have to update an application. If you receive like an ITA, but then you're actually going to be applying, right? You need to provide the proper tier information. So head on over to the knock website and make sure that you filter properly by make sure that you filter properly by here. I'm going to change this to 2021, and then we can take a look here to say, you know, computer, and let's see what comes up for computer. So you see, so we have here different positions for computers, and now we can see the different tier codes, right? So tier 4, tier 4, tier 1, tier 0. So the codes now have also changed. There might be some small changes to the lead statement and the main duties, which is essential for express entry. As a lot of you already know, this is what we care about. So there might be changes, so make sure to review this carefully. You might have to get new supporting documents and whatnot. All right, guys, let's get right to it. We actually have a full hour today, which is fantastic. I know the last Q&As were a little bit short. I also know with time zone differences and daylight savings, I think I'm an hour earlier than I should be for the live Q&A. In any event, I'm here and let's get to it. Let's get right to it. All right, Alia says, as per IRCC NOC 93888, question mark, I'm PNP with 4-digit NOC, but now to be eligible for express entry, I need to include 5-digit NOC, but I can't use a 2021 version. Instead, I shall use 9388 number in my express entry application. So, Elia, good question. I actually didn't see your question, I swear, before starting to talk about the tier and whatnot. But yeah, as I mentioned, you might have to update your tier. You might have to get new supporting documents. It's some occupations are going to change in terms of what's eligible and ineligible. But do take a look here. And obviously, Aaliyah, if you do have any concerns and you want to make sure the application is properly prepared, feel free to head on over to our website and book consult. I do telework abroad, which means that I offer, if you're abroad, I offer different time zones compared to people inside Canada. So you can see here, if you're in London, if you're in Europe, I'm pretty much available all day. So you can talk to me in the morning when you're at your freshest. You can talk to me during the afternoon. You're ready. If you get home earlier, you can also talk to me. You don't have to stay up late to speak with an immigration lawyer. All right, let's get to our next question here. We have a question here. It says, sir, can I show work experience as my agent did not show at the time of the student visa? Yeah, so when you apply for the student visa, you're gonna have to fill out a form from outside Canada called the EMM 1294, and it's for a study permit outside Canada. And there's gonna be a section, right, that asks you it's specifically gonna ask you, you know, what is your work experience for the last, I think it's 10 years, 5 or 10 years. And there you have to list all your work experience when you were a student. It has to be listed there. So it's a great question. And what I would do is you can absolutely, and I encourage you on future applications, if you find any mistake, to correct it. Say, listen, on this study permit application, I made a mistake, or my consultant made a mistake. I forgot to disclose XYZ, and here's the proper documents. Here's what I should have disclosed. I strongly encourage you to correct errors when you find them. Don't continue, because it is a misrepresentation, right? To omit certain information. And you definitely want to make sure that everything is properly disclosed, even if you catch it after you disclosed it. All right, Baba Kane says, does your law firm do LMIA or work permit process, employee side? So we do assist with work permits. So the LMIA, we do have business clients as well, or we advise our business clients about how to properly advertise and get an LMIA. That is employer side. So there's nothing that you can do as an employee to get an LMIA. It's the employer that must do it, and we do work with employers for that. Once you have a valid LMIA, we'd be more than happy to meet with you to get you an application prepared for our work permit. So depending if you need a visa, you might have to apply at the same time. If you're TRV exempt, you might be able to make the application for the work permit at the border. You might have to prove certain supporting documents. So we do LMIAs for businesses. I encourage you to reach out. Alicia has a lot of experience working with employers, working with their HR strategy, their global recruitment, intra-company transfers, reciprocal agreements, also LMIAs. So do reach out. We'd love to help you out with this. All right. Next question. Amal Roy says, PCC taken after arriving in Canada is valid after 2 years? So it's an excellent question, Amal. I'm not too sure about what program you're applying for, but let's go take a look at let's go take a look here at the very bottom. Share my screen. Let's go take a look here for the completeness check for express entry. So if you have an express entry application, and a lot of other permanent applications require a police certificate, or even visa offices sometimes require this police certificate, but let's go take a look at what they want for police certificates. And the answer to your question is going to be, have you returned to your country of residence for more than 6 months? So if you no longer reside in your country of residence, the police certificate must have been issued after the last time the applicant stayed in that country for 6 months or more in a row. So my question for you is, have you returned to this country for 6 months or more? You can see here that the police certificates meeting the above requirements can be accepted even if they have an expiry date that has passed. So whether or not it's valid, Ahmad, it really depends on your personal situation, right? Have you resided in the last 6 months? And if so, it cannot be issued for more than 6 months. If you went back for more than 6 months in a row, if you haven't went back for 6 months in a row, it's you no longer reside there. So please take a look at the completeness check if you have an express entry application. And generally speaking, I would also follow these requirements as it relates to other PR programs, because police certificates, they can be quite strict about the right police certificate and what they expect from you. Wow, Moji Wah says, how is your French so good? Well, Wah, j'ai grandi dans une communauté francophone, donc le français, c'est ma première langue. Toutefois, je me retrouve toujours dans le milieu de travail où je dois m'exprimer en anglais. Donc, je parle français, je suis un francophone. Je prépare des demandes d'entrée express, des recours judiciaires en français. Donc, si vous êtes un francophone et vous voulez vous informer concernant le français, des services juridiques en français, je vous m'encourage à m'écrire. Ça me ferait plaisir de discuter avec vous votre dossier, de relire vos documents en français. Si vous préférez un peu de français, un peu d'anglais, je peux aussi faire ça pour vous. Donc, I do speak French. French is my first language. So if you are a francophone and you want legal services in French, or if some of your documents are in French, you want to make sure your lawyer can actually review them, do reach out. All right, Amara Touré says, what is your take on the rural and northern immigration pilot? Is it true that communities may impose a minimum duration of time to stay before being allowed to move elsewhere? So Amara, this is an excellent question. So the rural and northern immigration pilot is a community-driven pilot, right? So each community have their own requirements as to how you can get a nomination, right? How you qualify and whatnot. Now, my take on it is that it's a great program to encourage migration to other smaller communities. And the PR program is more beneficial, right? It's not an express entry program. It recognizes different work experience sometimes, or different eligibility work experience. So it's a fantastic tool for individuals that may not necessarily qualify for PNPs or express entry. And it's a great program to help Canada have more immigrants in rural communities, right? So that's my take on the program. And we might actually see municipal-driven programs, so small municipalities that can issue immigration. Is it true that communities may impose a minimum duration of stay before being allowed to move elsewhere? So this has to do more generally with every PR program that you have, right? When you obtain your permanent residence, you're going to most likely have to mention somewhere where you have your intent to settle, right? So where do you plan to settle? In a province, so for express entry, you can have your intention to settle. When we're dealing with PNPs, the province is giving you a PNP because you're telling them, listen, I want to live in Manitoba. I want to live in BC, right? You are telling the province that you want to settle inside the province. That's very clear in the PNPs. So generally speaking, you can't take your PNP, your PR, and the day after you receive it, pack your bags and go straight to Toronto, right? Because the only reason you had your PR is because you truthfully said before your application saying, listen, I want to live in Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan said, fantastic, here's your permanent residence. Thank you, welcome to Saskatchewan. So you can't just pack up your bags and move. So that there is, right, in some cases, your PR could get revoked if this is a case where you qualify for a program like the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot, and the next day you get your PR and you move out of the community, or your PNP and you move out, or right, this is not the proper way to do it. So I'd strongly encourage you that if you apply for a program that is community driven or province driven or location driven, that you that you actually fully intend to live there. And circumstances change, right? You might after 6 months lose your job and might have to find other work, and that can be explained, right? But truthfully, no, I would strongly discourage you from getting the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot if you don't have the truthful intention to establish yourself in that province. All right, Sana, I know we're skipping a few questions, but Sana, we do have some questions here about express entries. A question here from Sana saying, will express entry score come down to 430? We have another question from Millie, says my CRS score is 398. Are there any chances? Do I redo the EELTS tests? Guys, let's get to it. So express entry, the next draw, we expect the next draw to take place on Wednesday, November 9th. No guarantees, but that's when we expect it. And to be honest, guys, I don't think that the score is going to come down this low, right? 398, 430 was not even seen before COVID, right? So we can take a look here at the previous rounds of invitation, and let's go take a look, guys. So right now was very high because of COVID, but let's go take a look at even before COVID. Oops. I'm not going to go that far back, but you can see in 2017, the score. So in 2017, 2016, the score was in the 430s, right? So you had a chance, but really immigration to Canada got quite competitive in 2019, 2018, 2019, and before COVID, we saw the CRS score being closer to the 470s and 460s. So, and then another thing we can do is actually go back and take a look here at the rounds of invitation. And we can see here how many people are inside that pool. So for you, Molly, how many people are in front of you in the CRS, in the express entry pool, right? So at 398, right, you're down here, and we have literally here there's almost 60,000, 65,000. So there's 120,000 people ahead of you, and they're taking 475 individuals. So if we do some quick maths here, guys, we have 120,000 individuals, right, with a CRS score of above 400. And if we divide it by how many people they're taking every month, it's going to take 25. It's going to take 25 draws. So 2 draws a month, it would take, here it's about a year and a half. But keep in mind that more and more people are going to create applications, right? We see this number of, now that Express Entry is reopened, we see more and more applicants making profiles to come to Canada. So, there's a lot of factors here. Are they going to continue taking that many individuals? Yes. We saw the immigration levels plan. Mark did a great live Q&A on that. And here we can see that it's going to take, at least 25 or 26 draws, but really people are going to make new applications. So I think you're maybe looking at like 2 years. We can look at in a year or 2 years, look at whether or not the CRS score is going to come back low to the 430s, the 440s. But realistically speaking, a lot more people are going to make applications when we get in the 470, 480, which tends to be a nice sweet spot. So the question you might be asking yourself is, okay, well, what do I do, right? You can redo your EELTS. I strongly recommend it because you can get a lot of points for your language. And you can take a look here at the full ministerial instructions. And we can take, is this it? No, this is not. We can take a look at the instructions, ministerial instructions respecting express entry. Take a look here. And here you can see how they calculate your points. So this is where you might be thinking to say, okay, where do I put my efforts, right? For Canada, to immigrate to Canada. So, you might be looking here and saying, okay, should I get more foreign work experience? Because it might give me points in addition to my Canadian work experience, right? Do I focus on my official language proficiency, right? Here you can get bonus points. If everything is assessed at a 7 or higher, you can get bonus points. And same thing here, at a 9 or higher, you can get 50 bonus points. So take a look at the ministerial instructions. Do you speak French? Can you get your language test for French? So This would be to improve your score. The second thing you can do is look at alternatives to Express Entry. So on our website, if you go to Immigrate, we have Express Entry, but there's also provincial nominee programs. Take a look at the provincial nominee programs. In Manitoba, Saskatchewan, if you have any links to those provinces, they tend to be a little bit easier compared to Ontario and British Columbia. We have other economic programs, right? Rural and Northern Immigration Program. We also have the Atlantic Immigration Program that offers immigration to Canada. So you can look at Express Entry, improve your CRS score. You can also look at other PR pathways. All right, guys. Jaspreet says 492. Please tell me. Listen, I think next draw. I think next draw. You know, if I could predict the future, we'd be in the business of getting every application approved, right? But we can't predict the future. We can't know what's going to happen. But look, we're at 497. So I think November 9th, you have a chance at 492. November 23rd, 492. I really wish you good luck, Jaspreet. And obviously, if you want to make sure your application is properly prepared, head on over to our website, take a look to speak with a lawyer. I'd love to review your application. We review all your supporting documents, your whole Express Entry application. We ask you to do a first draft. You work one-on-one with a lawyer. There's no consultants involved. There's no middle person, no legal assistants, no law clerks. I review every application line by line, every document line by line. You can learn more about our approach on our website. All right, let's get back to your questions. Again, we don't necessarily take them in order. Try to take the questions that can really apply to the most individuals here. Let's take a question. So Eunice says, hello, my reference letters from my ex-employer contains some duties that are copied from the official website of NOC Canada. Is there any problem that it may cause when IRCC check out references? So I would encourage you to use a lot of the keywords, I would encourage you to make sure that everything is really truthful and honest as it relates to your application, right? So this means, for example, that if you meet that those duties word for word, that everything inside there is fully accurate, right? This being said, you're going to want to maybe explain why they're using word for word, give real examples and whatnot. But generally, we encourage to use similar words, but to really create your own personal reference letter, right? You don't want to copy paste the main duties and sign it, right? They might raise questions as to whether or not you actually did the main duties. So my tip for you, Eunice, see whether or not your employer can would be willing to provide a personalized letter, and with that uses similar language but not word for word. That being said, there's no hard rule that says you can't, right? But IRCC might look at this and say, okay, what do they actually do, right? Do they actually do everything, right? Word for word? Do they analyze and recommend? Did they draft and recommend, right? So it could raise some more questions, and generally you want to have personalized letter of references. Let's go take a look. Next question. Okay, try and take questions that apply to a lot of individuals. Sorry, taking a look at the questions here, trying to find best answers here. So we have some questions coming in. So we have a question here on settlement funds as a gift. So we need to make sure that it's an irrevocable gift, right? As you mentioned, and that I would strongly recommend to get a gift deed, right? It's a gift, it's not a loan, it's money they're giving you to settle. And yeah, I would 100% make sure this is very clear. I would provide as many details as possible to explain the circumstances. Again, this is just general information, but yes, if you're going to have any gifts or any large amount deposited inside your accounts, I strongly recommend for you to explain it. Said, federal skilled workers processing time is said to be 26 months. Does it mean it takes on average 26 months after receiving an ITA? So yes. So it'd be 26 months after submitting your electronic application for permanent residence. And right now, those numbers are a little bit like it's true for a lot of individuals. Like I have clients at 24 or 25 months writing to me saying, Cedric, can we do a mandamus application? Right? What is going on? I want to go to federal court. I've been waiting 2 years. I just want a decision. Accepted or rejected. I don't care. I want a decision. So the mandamus application is a whole other discussion. But during COVID, there was a lot of delays. And essentially what they've tried to do now is separate the COVID applications from new applications. So new applications are being processed quicker than old applications, but 26 months, right? Keep in mind, you might have to do a biometric request if you've never came to Canada. You might have to redo medicals. There might be ADRs. All these things are slowing down current applications. But listen, it's that's what they're saying on their website. They're saying that 26 months after you submit the EAPR on average to get the federal skilled worker processing time, but new applications are being processed quicker. So now 417, listen, if you're under 470, I think I've talked about this a little bit. If you're under 470, I think you're at least looking at 6 months to a year. Look to improve your express entry score. Look if you can get your French credentials, French language assessment. If you speak French, look to get an LMIA job offer. Try to get more work experience. Redo your language test. These are all ways to improve your CRS score. Look at PNPs, which can give you 600 points, right? So whether you're at 430, whether you're at 440, 450, 400, guys, really, right? The last CRS score was closer to 496, right? It's going down by about 4 points per time. You can look at the pool yourself. You can calculate, okay, if we continue to take, if we continue to take 4,700 applicants, how many individuals are going to come to Canada, right? People make new applications, so we expect these numbers to increase as we get to that sweet spot of 470, 460 that was pre-COVID. All right, Amara, being in Canada, can one apply for express entry on a closed temporary work permit based on French mobility stream? Interesting. So I don't know what you mean by closed temporary work permit. Like a temporary foreign worker program work permit. I don't exactly know what you mean by temporary work permit. The French mobility stream, this is most likely a PNP stream. There's no express entry French mobility stream. Most likely a PNP stream, but the answer to the question is, you need to obtain the work experience when you have a valid status inside Canada, right? You need to obtain the work has to be completed inside Canada. You can apply for a PNP, whether or not you're on a closed work permit or on an open work permit. You can apply for PNPs depending on the PNP specifics. But yeah, you can submit an express entry application. If you meet the general eligibility criteria. But so, I mean, long answer short is that, yeah, you should be able to apply for express entry. Again, I don't know the specific facts. I don't have the specific facts, but just generally speaking, I don't see anything why, based on what you've told me, you can't apply for express entry. Among says, can the gift deed be printed, or does it have to be handwritten? I mean, you can print the agreement, but I would encourage to have like a real signature, even IDs for the signature to show that it was really these individuals that signed the documents, obviously making sure that the ID signature matches the signature on the document. Can we find someone from Manitoba who can sponsor us? No. I mean, you can find an LMIA work permit, and then your employer can name you in a labor market impact assessment to get a work permit. It's a valid option in terms of family sponsorship. We've talked about this on the podcast, but family for express entry, we're talking about spouse and children. We're not talking about cousins and aunts and grandparents and whatnot, right? So funny question, but you can get an employer to sponsor your work permit and get a work permit, right? So there we have it. Dimple says, can we get an LMIA for vocational teacher? I am an assistant professor in mechanical in Indian University. Again, you need to get an employer, right? That the employer needs to prove they cannot hire a PR, that there's no PR or Canadian available to do the work. They have to advertise the job process. The job advertisement needs to be very specific as to what's included inside this inside the advertisement to submit the application. They need to then get the LMIA. They would name you in the LMIA. Then you can apply for your work permit. Some LMIAs, depending on the NOC, or now in November, depending on the tier, some of it is not going to give you a pathway to permanent residency because the work experience is not going to be skilled, right? So these are all questions that you're going to want to figure out. Is my work experience in Canada, if I get the LMIA, am I going to be able to transition to permanent residence? And the question is, it really depends on your job. And again, general information. I don't have all the specifics. If you want to speak with me, we review all your documents. We can prepare your express entry applications. We can help you get a work permit. If you're an employer, not employee, we'd love to speak to you as well to learn about how you can recruit foreign talent. Oh, sorry, Mary, I missed your question. Hi, Cedric. Acknowledgement of receipt 2 weeks ago. Got my letter of biometrics yesterday. Is it a good sign or just normal? If you haven't, generally speaking, they would not. It really depends. If you haven't done your biometrics, it might just be automatic, right? If you've already passed the completeness check, it might be in your application. It might say that you've already passed the completeness check, but I think it's just normal. If you haven't given your biometrics, it's just normal. Robin Warrior says, hello, Cedric. I applied for Manitoba, PNP, skilled worker, expression of invitation. I have a job offer and a bachelor's degree, and my ranking point is 548 in this program. Is it possible to get letter? Sorry, I don't understand LAA. I don't understand all the acronyms here. LAA, or do you think I have letter? Oh, the Manitoba letter of advice for application, I think, which is like the ITA for the PNP. I think that's what you're referring to. Or do you think I have scores high enough? So job offer, right, is for me, it's I don't want to say red flag, but for me it is, because I want to know, Robin Warrior, your PNP, your job offer, is it really a job offer, right? Take a look at our website. We have a blog here. Where is it? 5-tier takeaways, automated processing. We have a blog. Alicia wrote a fantastic blog that talks all about making sure that your job offer meets the requirements for express entry. Geez, we have so many blogs. Where is it? There it is. Sorry, guys. There it is. So listen, Robin Warrior, I encourage you to look at this extremely carefully, because job offer, are you claiming the job offer points in your express entry application, but you don't actually have a job offer that is an arranged employment offer with an LMIA, on an LMIA-based specific work permit, or you're LMIA exempt, but you're on a closed work permit, and you have a new job offer that meets these requirements and specifically says that the job offer, they're going to hire you for more than 1 year after you get your permanent residency. I see this a lot. The answer to that is probably no, right? As to whether or not you have a qualifying offer of an arranged employment for express entry to get 50 additional points. And very common mistake. And, it would not, very common mistake that we see with people who retain us, right? We have to get this fixed. You have to say no to that question. And this is something that we obviously review in our express entry applications to make sure that all the points you claim for are done correctly. So Robin, even if you don't claim the 50 points for the job offer, it's probably going to drop you down to 498, which is still fine. You're still above the cutoff of the last express entry. It's really up to you how you want to proceed with the PNP, or if you think that your express entry profile is good enough. It's going to be something for you to take a serious look at. Again, we don't give advice in live Q&As because I don't know enough about your situation. But if your score is 498, you have a high chance of getting an ITA in the next draw on November 16th. But I'd be really curious to see how you got to how you got to your CRS score, your language results, the points that you're claiming, to make sure that you don't wait a year just to get rejected because you made a very small mistake. So there we have it. Can one get his PR card after landing in Canada after his confirmation? When can one get his PR card after landing? So shocked. They actually changed it recently, and they actually allow you, now it's the automated process where they're going to send it to you automatically. You used to have to create a form and submit an application, but now there's a new process. PR card for IRCC. We can go take a look at it. So let's go take a look here on the website. So you would only apply if you did not receive it in 180 days. So like I said, it's automatic now in terms of getting it. You have to, when you get into Canada, you can have to provide a Canadian address. You can update this address later if you wish, but you need a Canadian address. You can't mail your card outside of Canada. All right, let's get to some more questions. Well, so many questions, guys. I'm trying to get through as many as possible in our live Q&A. All right, next question. Hey, Cedric, question about Schedule A. Should I print, sign, and scan, or just write my name and it's considered signed? Their email says that it should bear an electronic signature. Tarek, it's it's hard to tell you, to give you advice on what to do, because there's the PR portal, right? Where you can submit PR applications that have specific instructions saying that you can just write your name, and when you submit it, it's going to be signed. It's your declaration. It's the same thing for the normal IRCC portal, the GC key or the My IRCC account, where when you can submit some forms, but some forms must be signed with a blue pen and then scanned and then re-signed. So a few examples: the common law statement form. We encourage clients to sign it with their signature. The use of a representative form. There's also for spousal forms. Some forms must be signed by both parties. So it's hard to tell you exactly what form. So here you have a Schedule A. I don't necessarily know how you're submitting it. Listen, if there's any doubt, you can print it and sign it and rescan it, or you can just follow the instructions. But unfortunately, I can't really tell you what to do because so much has changed during COVID. There's different programs that have different requirements for signatures. Your Schedule A, right? With listen, I don't want to give you wrong advice. My advice is just listen to my information is just to listen to the IRCC instructions super carefully and follow what they're telling you to do. We very rarely deviate from what IRCC tells us to do. If here they're telling you an electric signature, well, it has to be electric signature, right? Follow their instructions. When can I get sibling points for my CRS score after his landing in Canada? So the CRS, we've talked about this already. The PR card is not your PR, is not when you get your permanent residence. You get it when they land inside Canada and their confirmation of permanent residence is signed, right? You do have to prove, and if we go take a look at the completeness check, there's specific requirements for siblings. They have to be living inside Canada, right? Trying to find here family. Go to the bottom here. So the specific requirements, right? So they here are the requirements that you need to provide. And or permanent resident card must be provided. But you really get the permanent residence when the person lands, gets the confirmation of permanent residence. That's when they get their permanent residence. You could provide the permanent residence confirmation of permanent residence document that's signed. Could explain that the PR card is in process and you're going to update the express entry application. But here, if they require the permanent residence card to submit your EAPR, most likely better just to wait to avoid having to update by application, the documents not being there. But it's true, like they get their permanent residence as soon as they land into Canada, get the confirmation of permanent residence. You don't have to have a PR card, generally speaking, to it's a good idea if you want to travel, right? And you want to have proof of status, but the PR is obtained when they sign the confirmation of permanent residence. The family member has to be residing inside Canada, right? So provide this information and then obviously provide proof of relationship to your family member. So there we go. A little bit of uncertainty. I'd be more cautious. I would wait for your PR card to submit it because that's what they're asking for in the express entry application. You can also submit the confirmation of permanent residence. All right, let's find here our next question. Hi there. My friend from India intends to apply in the Atlantic Immigration Program. Can you elaborate on how to get a job offer from a Canadian employer? Also in India, he has been receiving salary in cash. How can you provide work experience? He has docs reference like letter, appointment letters, salary slips. Will this be enough? Yeah, it's going to be enough. And also an explanation that he gets paid in cash should be enough to demonstrate that the work was paid, right? Does the contract specify that he's being paid? Does it specify how it's being paid? I would provide a short explanation to show that how it works. How it works. But yeah, this sounds like a lot of information regarding to your first question, how to get a job offer from a Canadian employer. So each province, if you take a look at the AIP, each province, the 4 Atlantic provinces have their own process to designate employers. So when they designate employers, the designated employers are allowed to sponsor through the AIP. So here, okay, get designated. This is for employers, right? They need to take training, find a candidate, and whatnot. And let's take a look here for you. So get a job offer, right? It's explaining here on the website. And then here you're going to have the different provinces. So let's go take a look at New Brunswick. New Brunswick has their own designation for the immigration as it relates to the Atlantic Immigration Program. And you can see the employers here. So you can get the list of designated employers. These are all the employers that are designated through the AIP. So now we can go ahead and, we can contact Greenhaven Management. Let's contact Ginger Design, right? These are all the companies, Hilton Garden in Fredericton downtown, who are designated under the AIP. These are individuals that are allowed to give you a job offer, to give you the PR, give you the designation, I should say, for the Atlantic Immigration Program. So it's administered by every province. Diksha, so find the designated employer, look to see whether they're hiring, contact them. You're gonna have to get interviewed and see whether you're a good fit and so on. And that's how you get a job offer. All right. Here we have a paid question. I was working while doing my undergrad in home country. Will this work experience be counted for express entry? I have tax returns, I have proof of employment. So very good question. And the answer to your question is that you are allowed to work while studying. It's just not allowed for the Canadian experience class. It has to be, right? You do have to, but for the federal skilled workers outside Canada, the work experience must be continuous. The work experience must be continuous. So if you did 4 months here, 6 months there, it's not going to count as continuous. It really has to be 1 year continuous. For the Canadian experience class, you can have, it's 1 year in total. So those are important differences, right? But if you do have the 1 year continuous and you have 1 year of full-time work experience or equivalent to full-time work experience, it's allowed. You can double check here the ministerial instructions. So let's go take a look at that. We had them up earlier, right? And again, this is just general information. I don't have more specifics about your situation and about what exact work you were doing and where you were studying and how you're declaring your application. And if you'd like to chat about that and have me actually review what's going on, please reach out. All right, foreign work experience. Let's go take a look. So here we have the combination points, and here we have at section 25 the actual foreign work experience. So it has to be outside Canada, NOC OA or B, full-time work experience or equivalent acquired in the last 10 years, paid in wages, meet the 4-digit NOC code of the NOC. It's going to change to 5 digits with tier, meet the lead statement, the main duties. Full-time consists of at least 30 hours per week. Work in excess. How do you calculate work in excess? This, right, for section 23 and 24 is super important. 23, 24, you need to meet this. And keep in mind, right, as we talked about, it has to be continuous. It's super important for one of the eligibility requirements for federal skilled workers, which I would presume you're applying under if you're outside Canada. All right, Andrea, hello. If I get a job offer from a designated employer from AIP, can I get 50 points in express entry? Such a common question. And listen, I still have this page open, right? What is a qualifying offer of employment? Read it here, right? The AIP is not an LMIA. the AIP is not an employer-specific work permit. It's not an LMIE-based employer work permit. It's not an LMIE exemption on a specific work permit under the International Mobility Program. The AIP is its own beast. It's its own thing, right? The AIP is a PR program. It's you're gonna get your PR through the AIP, so I don't see why you have an express entry application. We talked about intention, so you're applying to the AIP. You're telling, look, I want to come live in the Atlantic provinces. Give me permanent residence. I'm going to come live in the Atlantic province. And now you're telling me on my live Q&A saying, no, I want to do express entry now, right? Express entry would be for all the provinces, right? So you might have a problem of intent, right? But again, I don't know all the details, but to answer your question, Andrea, no, you're not going to get the 50 extra points because it doesn't meet qualifying job offer employment, right? And again, you're going to get your PR through the AIP, right? I don't know why you would be making an express entry application, but then again, I don't know your whole situation, right? So there we go. How official do pay stubs have to look? Because mine look like a battlefield. I mean, listen, I've seen really sophisticated ones. I've seen really ones that were made in Excel sheets. Very simple ones, as long as they're genuine, right? If you have company letterhead, that'd be great. If you can explain why they look like a battlefield. With my clients for express entry, what we actually do is we create an Excel sheet. We go over all the years, all the hours, all the jobs, and we calculate it, right, based on the hours on the pay stub to make sure that our clients have enough full-time work experience for this to count. So they don't have to look official, but they have to be legit. And maybe your employer can explain why they look like a battlefield, or you can explain why it looks like a battlefield, but scan them properly and get it done. How much time should I wait how much time should I wait? My file stuck in review eligibility after medical and spouse case. Listen, Rich, hard to tell you exactly. Take a look here at the processing, right? Spousal living inside Canada, because here it's 14 months. This being said, in your case, is there an implied refusal, right? Is IRCC taking much longer than needed to process your application? You could read my blog on mandamus. Mandamus is a formal court action. You go to federal court and you're asking the judge to tell IRCC to get going on your application. So it's a valid option to go to federal court and get a writ of mandamus. It really depends on your individual situation. All right. Sherry says, hi, is it a valid job offer for express entry? No LMIA. No. So a lot of questions, guys. We wrote this blog for a very specific reason, because we keep having this question about what is an offer of arranged employment, right? So this is new LMIA-based work permits, or LMIA, you have the LMIA work permit, but the LMIA is expired. Scenario 3, you're working in Canada, right? And you're working for an employer listed on your current work permit. If you're under the postgraduate work permit, it's an open work permit. It is not an employer-specific work permit, right? You can work for any employer. So the answer to your question is no. You cannot work because your employer is not listed on your work permit, because the post-graduation work permit is an open work permit. Plus full-time job offer from permanent residence, same knock. No, we can't do that. Take a look at our website. It's all explained, right? It's all explained here. Right here, we talk about LMI exemptions. This is the IRCC website. If you want to review it, right? My question for you, right, is right here. This is why it's going to fail. You have been working full-time for the employer on your work permit for at least 1 year. The answer to that question is no. You are on an open work permit. The employer is not listed on your work permit. Again, I don't know your specific situation, but the postgraduate work permit is an open work permit, and your employer is not listed on your, well, I mean, anything's possible, but high likelihood that your employer is not listed on your work permit. But take a look here, right? For more information, your work permit is exempt, but it's not exempt under one of these Canadian interests, right? So there we have it. All right, a lot of questions, guys. The easiest way to get through as many questions, help as many people, is really for you to take a look at our website. Feel free to continue asking your questions. We can go over it. But if you don't have if you're LMI exempt, they need to be on your work permit, and they need to be under the International Mobility Program, like one of these down here. All right, next question. Thanks. Folded hands. Marin, my pleasure. All right, Amir says, hi, Cedric. Does IELTS expire 2 years from the test date or the result date? Ooh, excellent question. Very nuanced. Let's go take a look at what IRCC wants for language. It's not in the completeness. IELTS language test, IRCC. Let's go take a look at what they want. To enter the test results, include the test with your applications. What happens next? Validity. Listen, the result date. I'm trying to find the specific where it says the 2 years expiry. So there we go. So your test result must be valid 2 years from when you complete your permanent express entry profile, apply for permanent residence. It's the result date. If your test expires soon, test results expire soon, you should retake the test and update your express entry profile with your new test results. Interesting. If you haven't, language tests. Listen, a lot of the clients we have have done the IELTS test within the last year, so I haven't had to look this into too much detail, but I encourage you to read the IRCC webpage. Here it does speak about being the test results, right? Not about the test date, but I would encourage you to take a closer look at the IRCC webpage. I'd love to look into this in more detail. I don't know the answer off the top of my head. As I mentioned, a lot of our applicants are doing have it for it's still valid in a year or not. So it's something that we obviously verify to make sure that it's still valid, but I don't know the answer off the top of my head, nor can I necessarily find it, Amir. So take a closer look on the website. Obviously, if this was a paid consult or an existing client, we're 3 other lawyers. We work together as a team to make sure that we correctly understand the instructions. And I don't know everything. And you know what? I think it speaks about character and abilities, right? I have to do research like everyone else. I need to understand, the nuances between test results and test dates and result dates, right? So, sometimes I'd have to sit down and, learn and update myself and do research, right? I don't know everything, and I definitely don't proclaim to have known everything. We're approaching the end of our live Q&A. If you have one final question, we have Aedal with a final question. Says, "Hi Cedric, lived in a foreign country twice, 5 months first time, came back in my home country for 45 days, and then went back for 45 days second time. So more than 6 months, but not in a row. Should I provide PCC?" So Dal, it's gonna be an interesting question. Did you come back to your home country for vacation? Did you live in the other country, right? Did you actually were you living there for more than 6 months, but you came back home for a few weeks and then you went back to live there? These are all going to be important factors, but let's take a look at the completeness check, right? The completeness check does speak about 6 months or more row in a country. And it also talks about, right, even if you haven't actually lived there, even if you didn't establish residential address, if you live for 6 months or more in a row, whether or not you established it, then you have to provide it. So, for me, it's really going to come down to, were you there for 6 months and then you just left, you left for a vacation, and then you came back for more than, and you came back and you meet the 6 months. Were you there, you come back because visa issues, you never actually lived there permanently? It's going to be an interesting question to clarify, but, the instructions are here, right? IRCC has some discretion when assessing whether police certificates do not qualify within the standards of IRCC parameters, may still be required to process the application. So it might also make sense to err on the side of caution and just provide those police certificates, just because if it's interpreted this way or that way, or short vacation, live there, didn't live there. But listen, here we're talking about 6 months in a row, more in a row. Here we're talking about discretion for officers. How complicated is it to get police certificates for the other countries? It can delay your application. All important factors, right? Because you can imagine, right, someone who lives somewhere for a year might travel and go on a vacation abroad, might go back home in their home country, right? But really they're residing in, the country for more than a year. So just because you left for a short period doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't in a row. So there we have it, guys. Here is our live Q&A. I'm going to be changing the time of our live Q&As. I'm going to be pushing them back a little bit later by 2 hours. So I think I'm going to do 8:30 a.m. Ottawa time, 8:30 a.m. Toronto time, to allow people from the West Coast to join us at 5:30 a.m. in Vancouver, And it's also going to allow you, if you're outside Canada, it's going to allow you a little bit more flexibility to watch the live Q&As later in the afternoon. My name is Cedric Marin, Canadian immigration lawyer at Holt Immigration Law. I want to thank you so much for joining my live Q&A. Join me next Tuesday. Tuesdays and Thursdays, guys, is when I do live Q&As. Take a look at our website. A lot of resources about blogs, how to immigrate, study, work. I focus on rejected applications. I focus on express entry, judicial reviews, and writ of mandamus. So listen, I encourage you to reach out. Very top here, speak with a lawyer. Very bottom, you can book a paid consult. We can see here all the areas that I focus on. I'd love to speak with you. Thank you so much, guys. Have yourself a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Goodbye.